Hi, this is Charlie from Vintage Speed. Today we're going to show you how to install an inline 4-2 progressive linkage on any of the manifolds with 4-2s with the carburetors in line. This is our stainless steel 4-2 progressive linkage, and the first thing you're going to do is you're going to install on the Stromberg 97, you're going to install all the carb arms facing 45 degrees forward from vertical, just like we've got them here. And we're going to run this arm, the long arm for the progressive, can either be run on the second carb back, or you can flip this over and you can run the arm on the third carb back and have it connected up here. So this will work either way. We're going to show you how to hook it up with it hooked up this way, but the other way it'll work. Well, the first thing you're going to want to do once your carb arms are on is you're going to put the swivel pin on. The swivel pin goes through the linkage, and your long rod that actuates your other secondary carburetor goes on, and then you snug this 3/8 nut down until it touches. Then you want to back it off just about 1/8 of a turn. You want it just enough that roll pin will rotate. You don't want it sloppy. You just want it just barely where it'll rotate, so that when this cams through, that pin can rotate just a little bit. Okay, your long arm goes on here, facing 45 degrees forward. You can go ahead and lock it down. Your third carb arm goes on facing 45 degrees forward. Now, these two arms will have springs on it. So before I go any further, I'm going to show you how you install the springs on the carb arm. If you've got aftermarket bases like these that have the little brass piece, or if you've got stock bases, they should have a steel bushing here that the hand throttle rode on. If you don't have anything there, you don't worry, the spring can ride on the throttle shaft. Your return spring that we make looks like this. Now this tag end will probably be longer. You need to clip it off and make it about 1/2 inch where it's facing out that way. Leave this one long on this side. Now the first thing you do is you drill a 40 thousandths hole directly below the throttle shaft. And you can see it's just a little bit above halfway between the bottom of the bushing and the bottom of the base. And that's the hole that the spring is going to go in. Okay? So once you get that, you take your spring and lay your spring over and insert your spring into the hole and push it all the way in, just like that right there. Okay? Now your carb arm is going to go on. Your carb arm will already have a little hole drilled in it. The easiest way to do these is put the arm on upside down. Go ahead and stick the spring in the hole in the arm, and go ahead and push the arm all the way back up so it's tight against the bushing. Okay, and then usually at this point what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just put a little bit of pressure on this so that it'll stay where I put it. Okay, so I can rotate it over and put spring tension on it. I need a little bit more tension on it to hold it. Make sure you keep it up against the bushing. It don't have to be tight, but it needs to be against the bushing. The reason for that is you don't want the spring to get down in behind and bind in behind the bushing. Okay. Okay, at that point, once you get this tight enough that you can still turn it, but it don't come back, that's where you want it. Let me give it just a little bit more here. We'll play that silly game. It'll give it another 1/2 turn or so, just so it locks it down on that shaft a little bit better. Okay, we're going to rotate this around like so, and you want to rotate this up until this arm is the same as those. 45 degrees forward from vertical. You're going to sweep open your throttle plates to a 90-degree arch, so you want that 45 degrees right there. Once that spring is in the hole there, Once the spring is in the hole there, and make sure it's pressed in tight against the hole in the back, it should stay in there. Okay, that gives you your return on your base. Okay, at that point, what you're going to do is you're going to take this rod that you fastened up front, and you're going to line that rod up by loosening the heim joint. You can screw a little bit out of both sides, whichever you need there to get it. And you want it so that the screw goes straight through. In other words, you don't want it cattywampus off either side. You want that screw to go straight through, and that's critical on this linkage. So adjust it so that your screw is going straight through. It shouldn't be any deflection right or left. Okay. Then we're going to put our flat washer on. We're going to put that in, and we're going to get our nylock nut, and we're going to put that on the back. And the easiest way to do that, swing this to the back like this so you can get to it. Okay. We can do that this way and cut the end of the shaft off, or we can go the other way. Let's go the other way with it. Make it easier. Put your screw through from this side. That way you won't have an interference problem here. Okay, and then we'll put another little flat washer on there, and I'm going to put my nut on. Okay. These always go a lot easier when you're not doing a video. Now what you want to do on this one is to keep these throttle plates from fighting each other. You got to have a little 4 1/2 movement in this rod, and I'm going to show you how you get it. You go ahead and tighten it down till it's snug. Okay, when it's snug, what you want to do is you want to back this nut off about 3/4 of a turn. And the reason for that is I need a little 4 1/2 play in this rod. And then you can bring your lock nut back and lock your linkage down. And what that's going to, the reason for that is because when one set of throttle plates closes on your secondary, the linkage is so precise, the bases are so precise, whichever throttle plate touches first will hold the other throttle plate open a little bit, and you'll get a vacuum leak on your front and rear carburetors. So on all of our linkages, you always want to make sure that you got just a little bit of 4 1/2 play. I don't need quite that much. You can take a little of that out. It just needs maybe an 1/8 inch 4 1/2, and you do that by, these are nylock nuts, so they lock where you put them. That's all you need right there, just enough so you got a little wiggle in it. What that does is, say this set of throttle plates closes, if you got some wiggle in it, it'll allow this set of throttle plates to close completely too, so you don't end up with these two sets of throttle plates fighting each other. Okay, now when this is done, I'm not going to do it now, but when this is done, you can tighten everything down. You can take a pair of needle nose pliers and bend this tang around and clip it off so it don't get your finger, and then tighten everything down. All right, the way this linkage works, you always keep the actuator rod in the top hole on the long arm. This arm has holes below it normally, but on this particular manifold, this is our DeSoto 4 deuce, it hits the manifold, so we had to take the arm and shorten the arm. You can cut that arm off if you need to. It has 3 holes on it. You might only have to.
You want to show them what one looks like?
Yeah, here's here's the way this arm normally looks. But if you have interference with the manifold, you may have to clip off one piece or two pieces to get it to work. Okay, now the way it's going to work, and we'll show you how you adjust it. These little locking collars here are controlled with a little Allen wrench. And this locking collar here is just a safety. This is the locking collar here that controls the linkage. What you want to do is just, usually I lock that down maybe an inch out, and I pull my linkage. What you want the linkage to do is you're going to run on about 60-65% throttle on your center carburetors, and then it's going to pull your outer carburetors open. But what you want to do is you want to make sure all your throttle plates are open. You can look over here on your stop and make sure. Now I've got the tops off these so I can see that this is not letting my primary open quite enough. So what I need to do is move this back just a little bit. Okay, there's all four carburetors are reaching wide open at the same time, and that's what you want. And that's the way the linkage works there. Now as far as pull, for pulling with your throttle linkage, we supply a longer screw for here, or you can put the longer screw and turn it around up here and attach your throttle to here. It doesn't matter where you attach your throttle. You can even attach it over on this side if you need to. But remember, you've always got to pull from your primary carburetors. So your primary carburetors, this is your run and drive, and then they open up your secondaries. And as you can see, they all reach wide open at the same time. And that's just the way that linkage works. You can get by with the standard length throttle shafts on every carburetor except the one you're putting the long rod on. It gets pretty tight there. You may be able to get it on with a standard length shaft, but usually on the primary one we put an extended shaft on it, so we make sure we can line everything up here. But that's just the way the linkage works. Now if you're going to run it the other way, then this arm would be on this carburetor, and this rod would be coming from here to the short arm on this carburetor. So that gives you what you want. Now it'll come with springs. Usually we put the 2 springs on the secondary carburetors to lock it back. If you need an additional spring, you can put a spring on the primary carburetor too to get a positive return on your primary carburetor, and then you don't have to hang any more springs out there. You got everything you need. It's real simple to install. Just remember, you drill the 40 thousandths hole right below the shaft, somewhere around halfway or a little less than halfway, in line with the shaft. Slide your spring in, put your arm on, tighten it down snug enough that you can still turn it, but that it locks on the shaft. And then you just bring this around to the 0.45, and that loads your torsion spring so that you end up with a good return on your secondaries. And that's all there is to it. This will work on any of the 4.2 inline manifolds as well as 4.2 logs. If you're doing a progressive linkage on a log, you can run it like this. If you want to run, say you've got an 8-deuce manifold with another set beside it, and you want to run the 4 primary carburetors in the center and bring in the 4 outside carburetors, you can use the same linkage. It's just 2 sets of it setting over here, and then what we do is we put a back bar on here that'll control it, so you can control your linkage from back here. So it'll pull both banks at the same time. But for the inline, this is the way it works, and as you can see, it's a nice smooth linkage. Make sure our linkage is comprised of a 1032 stainless rod that runs all the way through 5/16 polished aircraft tubing. If you have to shorten this a little bit, you can take the nuts off one end, slide the tube off, cut it off, cut the tube off a little bit and shorten it. I normally give you the rod long enough for the manifold you're going to be installing it on. So generally you don't have to change this, but if you do, it makes a very smooth linkage, and that's just the way it works. If you need any parts or you need to talk to me about it, I'm Charlie, 772-778-0809, or you can view these linkages on our website, www.vintagespeed.com. Thank you very much.